So welcome everyone. Yeah, my name is Brad and I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. Yeah, I see there's more people joining. I'll just continue. And I'm going to share my screen just to guide the presentation a bit. At any time, feel free to ask questions. You can stop me and ask questions. And yeah, the presentation is really going to be about what we're currently doing in Cape Town, really with aspirations of developing a model. And sorry, let's see, the share screen went off. Can you all see my screen? It says a nano-school model using Sociocracy in Cape Town. Yep, thanks. Yeah, I'm also part of the, Hope mentioned about the community of practice in schools that we meet about once a month. I'm a part of that community of practice, which I highly recommend. It's been a great support base for me, and I'll talk through that support as I go through the presentation. Okay, so who am I, and who are we as an entity, and where are we based? So I said Cape Town, and more specifically at the moment, we're focusing in a particular neighborhood called Mitchell's Plain. Mitchell's Plain is a place that I grew up in, and I moved out and I moved back in. So I initially worked as an electrical engineer for about 8 years, and yeah, just seeing the education system in constant decline in South Africa, I wanted to be a part of that, and really felt like I had a big passion to help navigate what are more inclusive and quality education experiences for students. And that set me off on a research journey in many ways. And it led me back to Mitchell's Plain, to move back to Mitchell's Plain, and to Cape Town as well. And I did my master's degree in inclusive innovation at a business school at the University of Cape Town, and really specifically looking at how do we create inclusive education models in a South African context. And one thing I realized is that there are many overlaps between the education departments all over the world. I was inspired by a book called The Beautiful Tree by James Tooley, which really just looks at what is happening in private bottom-up education models, specifically in Africa and in India, but he touches on South America and a few other places as well. And that just led me on this journey in 2016 on just trying to figure out what is the best use of my time to help shift the needle in South Africa. So one of the big problems in South Africa is just generally, not only from an education perspective, but just from a life perspective, people feel stuck, in terms of being stuck in the education's experiences, but also work experiences. There's a lot of, systemic injustices that are impacting people on a daily basis. And once you get into that paradigm, it's really difficult to get unstuck. And then, also just noticing during my master's studies that globally there's this education decline happening, particularly from a public education system, and with a lot of the private schooling education systems being inaccessible financially for the majority of people. Seeing that this is a common theme across countries. And seemingly at the time, for me at least, no clear solution. Like, you know, there's no one that was engaging on an education solution that seemed like this is the thing that everyone can get behind. And that led me on this journey of really going to first principles of, you know, asking questions, like asking big questions, like, you know, what is education for? And, you know, if I'm sure most of us have watched quite a few TED Talks on people like Sir Ken Robertson and many others that really ask these questions in a very engaging way. Like, you know, what's the point of education? And we look at the current education experience and just seeing that it's just not what we want to be experiencing in life. And so our aim is really to create a sustainable and inclusive nano-school model that can easily be replicated. And why nano-school is infrastructure is often one of the big challenges in creating education spaces, and many people just feel like they can't get started because, you know, they need to find a school building or they need to find a building that's big enough. And what we found is that there are many unused buildings in our communities, government buildings, church buildings, various, you know, unused buildings. And for us to just retrofit these buildings, unused buildings, for the purposes of an inclusive education model that also then inherently is well integrated in the surrounding community. I'm going to take you on a quick video tour of what our space looks like. Okay, so yeah, I see your question, Magdalena. So nano-school in South African context is different to micro. So a nano, in our definition, is a school that has less than 20 students. And we have micro schools in South Africa that would have like 100, 200 kids in the school. So nano means like, you know, exceptionally small. And a lot of that is regulatory. So in South Africa, there's this weird law that, or let me just say law that if you have less than 20 kids, you are not allowed to register as a school. And so we keep it less than 20 because often in a South African context, anything else other than public schooling is seen as a competition to the government, to the education department. And we're really wanting to express our Sociocratic school in a way that's not going to be hindered by unwanted attention. So there's very much a very legal, regulatory fight that's happening in South Africa, as is happening in many other countries. You know, in some countries in Europe and in other continents, you know, homeschooling for one is outlawed. In South Africa, it's not outlawed, but it's just frowned upon, and everything else, alternative schools in general, is you know, frowned upon by the education department. Okay, so I'm going to show you that video quickly and just take you on a video tour. Can you see the map that I'm showing on the screen right now? You can just say in the text or voice, because I can't see anybody.
Yeah, we can see the map.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is a presentation I did for our community of practice and just kind of showing you where we're located. So you'll see in Africa and zooming into South Africa, and in the south of South Africa, you have Cape Town, and zooming in more into Cape Town, you have in the south of Cape Town, you have Mitchell's Plain, which is where we're doing most of our activities. And in the south of Mitchell's Plain, we have Rocklands, which is where one of our nano schools are. And Mitchell's Plain is a under-resourced community, lots of potential and, you know, just amazing things happening, but really plagued by gangsterism and drug dealing and drug addiction and crime moreover. And a lot of that is, you know, influenced by just past experiences, past systemic injustices. So this is the space, and you'll see now it's very much integrated in the community. So, you know, low, middle class kind of community in terms of socioeconomic status. A community that has about, you know, 50% unemployment rate. So unemployment, especially for youth, is quite high. And I've formed a partnership with the building owners, which is a church building basically. And this is me just explaining to the community of practice where we're at and how we operate. That's the name of the space over there, called Grace Cafe. And this is very much a bottom-up approach. And for us, it is really important to have a bottom-up approach because we don't want to be overly dependent on funders, you know, big funders, because often with a lot of friends of mine that have social enterprises, it just becomes a, you know, you're fulfilling reporting requirements for the funders. And so this is our space, and this is just walking in, and you can see it's a bit messy. This is because of COVID. People have to sign in, temperature checks. And as we go and as we grow, so these are some of the clubs that the students can join. So there's a finance club, designers club, book club, TED Ed club, cooking club, and exercise club. Coding club, sorry, not cooking. So these are the students. There's like a little chill area over here that the students can read or, you know, just chill. And then the curriculum that the kids are using. So these are for teenagers. They between the ages of 14 and 18, more or less. Some of them are over 18. And they're doing the GED curriculum. So that's an American curriculum, but in South Africa, it's approved as a high school diploma. So these are the kids busy working on whatever they're working on. So it's a self-managed environment. So we use agile practices for them to plan their day and review their day. So just a library type of thing happening over here. Books for them to read if they want to. And this is managed by the students largely. We have one staff member that's kind of helping with facilitation. This is the kitchen. They've got a coffee machine. They've got their dishes, their clean dishes on the left over here. So we try and separate it because of, you know, COVID things. And this is largely managed by them. So, you know, in terms of cleanliness, in terms of tidying up, all of that stuff is they meet on a weekly basis to, yeah, just plan and arrange things. And Sociocracy is the way in which that happens. And I do a little interview with one of the students. Can you hear the audio? I'm just thinking now, no. Okay, let me just reshare my screen.
When you click share screen, do the share audio
share
option.
sound. Yeah, I forgot to do that. So this is an interview with one of our students.
Okay,
Can you hear it now? Yep.
Neil van der Merwe, and I'm 16. I'm currently a GED student here at Grace Cafe, and some of my hobbies are gardening. I like songwriting and rapping, and I also like adventure. So what are the big differences between a public school and Grace Cafe? I would say that Grace Cafe gives much more freedom than public school does. The public school has a lot of structure and a lot of I would say, authoritarian governing system. Um, and here at Grace Cafe, um, I or me as a student has much more of a voice in how I want to learn and when I want to learn and the things that I want to do. Um, and also, I feel compared to the public school that I went to, I feel that there's more opportunities here at Grace Cafe compared to a public school. Um, yeah, and generally just much more freedom. What are things that I enjoy about sociocracy? I would say that it allows everyone to voice um, their opinions and their thoughts, because we go in around and there may be someone who's not really fond of speaking in a group, and they usually hold their opinion to themselves, but that opinion could be the solution to the problem. So I think that going in around and giving everyone the opportunity to speak really allows everyone to voice their opinions and their thoughts. Um, I really enjoy the conflict resolution of sociocracy, because if there's someone who doesn't agree to a solution, for reasons that they have, then everyone will adapt the solution, they will or they will speak and try to reason with the person who's not comfortable with the said solution. So I think that really, the conflict resolution is really a big part of what I enjoy about sociocracy, um, and it doesn't leave any odd ones out like democracy does. So that's what I really enjoy about sociocracy. And it also pushes people to think, and it challenges them when it comes to the different roles that they appoint. Like someone who has had no facilitating experience could challenge themselves to be a facilitator and get better at it, because there will be a time in their lives where when they will need to be a facilitator. So I think that really pushes people and challenges them. And it has a really good structure as well, sociocracy. Yeah.
Cool. So that's Neil. He's one of our students that finished his GED last year. And he's moving on to be sort of exploring some business aligned interests with us this year. So just a quick journey of where we've acted in relation to sociocracy. So in 2019, for me, through reading Reinventing Organizations, the book, and that led me to holacracy training, which didn't quite fit that well for me. I struggled with holacracy a bit in its structure and things. And, then finally finding sociocracy and sociocracy for all in particular. And then in 2020, we launched, after like 2-3 years of experimenting with different models and stuff, we launched our first nano-school, Grace Cafe. And we did the initial introductory training to sociocracy with SOFA during the initial lockdown period of COVID. And then in 2021, we started to do more detailed training and registering as a member of SOFA and joining the school's community of practice. And in 2021 as well, I started training a manager to run the nano school using Sociocratic principles. And this year we launching our second nano school and deepening the Sociocratic experience at Grace Cafe. So the intention is for us to continue to roll out more and more nano schools as time goes on in these various communities. And yeah, third nano school launch with Grace Cafe being the core trainer or coach in this process. So, those who have been trained becomes the trainer over time. We also have So in that video that I played, we had the community that I showed you, like the residential community. So I also started up a community group with some of the parents of the kids at the school, but then also just other adult community members. And we run that community group using Sociocratic principles as well. And one of the core aims of that circle is to create a better sense of community, which speaks into safety, but also speaks into reaching out to the homeless, reaching out to each other as neighbors. Yeah. So I'm about halfway through. Just wanted to do a quick check-in in terms of any questions. I've put in a suggestion question over there maybe, or thoughts from your side. What do you think will be the biggest challenge that we will need to overcome? But if you have any questions yourself, yeah, let's do a round of questions. I'll just stop sharing. I think I saw a hand. Oh yeah, Charlie and Marie.
Hi, Brad. Yeah,
Hey.
thanks for the presentation. I'm really curious to know how the funding works. So maybe I missed it, but is it free for the students, or do they pay, or do you get funding from some source? How does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't work. I'm kidding. So I'm getting to that. That's a great question. I'm getting to that later in the presentation, but I can answer your question as well. So what we do is we kind of quote unquote invoice the parents an amount, which in terms of looking at private schooling is way cheaper than any private school, but looking at a public school is way more expensive than most public schools. And especially the schools in the community that the kids attend. And that's about, trying to think what's it in dollars, it's about $30 per month per child, and or 25 maybe. So we invoice them that amount, and then we have a conversation with the parent in terms of what can they afford. And that's kind of a trust-based relationship. If especially with the pandemic, a lot of our parents have been hit with unemployment, and with the community group that I'm a part of, we often be actively engaged in trying to help families find employment. So we're really trying to do full circle engagement from a community development perspective, and not just isolating it in terms of education. Education has been the best avenue for me to live out sociocracy. Teenagers are way more receptive to sociocracy than adults, unfortunately. It's a lot easier to teach a child or teenager sociocracy than an adult. I think because I think there's a lot of trauma that that adults have experienced in relating to autocratic or other forms of governance. And so a new model is often met with skepticism. But so the parents try and pay the $20, $30 per month. About half of them do, half of them don't. And we try and do fundraising with the kids and with the families to meet that number. We also, we have a crowdfunding. So on that last slide, the question slide, there's a crowdfunding link. So we also crowdfund for people to pay monthly, a small amount per month to kind of cross-subsidize what is happening in this space. And then we work with various partners who volunteer at the nano-school. So we have a trauma care counselor, for example, comes once a week to meet with the kids. Like I mentioned, this is a high violence community, so most of them would have either seen gun violence or they close to it on a regular basis. And so she volunteers a time with us, and we have other volunteers. So there's still a staff member needed to kind of manage all of those volunteers and hold kind of the golden thread of keeping the kids safe, and just managing a bunch of things, but a lot of the things is managed by the students themselves. And that's our hope as well, is that it would be a student governed space more and more over time. I don't know, is there anything I didn't answer properly, Charlie?
No, that's great. Thanks.
Cool. Stephen?
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering whether are all of the students in the school pretty self-motivated to learn the content of the GED? Or is this something that are any students having their parents kind of want them to do it and they don't really want to do it themselves? And if so, like, how do you deal with that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, that's one of our biggest challenges. So most of them, when they're joining us, they have had about 10 years of public schooling behind them. So they're joining us when they maybe finished grade 9, more or less, grade 8. And generally, the public schooling system over here is teaching the kids to be very passive in their learning. The kids are being told what to learn, when to stand up, when to sit down, when to speak, when to, all of those things is, it develops a philosophy of learning for the students. And so when they join us, they have that's like 10 years of experience for them. That's all they know in terms of yes, behave well. That's all they know. And so when they join us, they have that passive experience or disposition where they're waiting for us to now tell them what to learn, when to learn, all that type of things. And so there's also that love of learning is not there. Learning and fun is seen as two different things. And our biggest challenge and our biggest work really is to help instill that love for learning, co-creating that journey with them. So a lot of the experience for all of us at Grace Cafe is what we call learning journeys. And the learning journey is just basically your journey of learning, your day-to-day interaction with the world, in terms of what you want to learn and how you want to learn. And the students, we have meetings with the students beforehand, and just to make sure that they're not being coerced to joining by their parents, that they want to join, and that there's an agreement that they are wanting to complete their GED studies with us. So there's kind of that consent before starting. Most of the alternative schools that I know about in South Africa are for younger kids, pre-teens, or once high school starts, then, they're meant to go to normal schooling or public schooling, often because of the accreditation process in terms of university acceptance, all of those types of things. So what we're doing for the age group we're doing it for as well is quite unique. And there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen. Unlearning is, a big part of our agenda, and the unlearning is not just for the kids, it's for us. I grew up, my primary schooling, my high schooling, even university experience has been mostly in an autocratic experience. And so, I'm having to untrain myself, and that's where the advantage of training teenagers comes into play, because they can hold me accountable, because they'll tell me, look, no, Brad, that's not how we do things around here. I need to consent to that. You can't just tell me because I said so. And in my humanness, that sometimes happens, and it's great to have teenagers who can hold me accountable to that. And slowly but surely, something is like this moment that happens where you just see that they've now fallen in love with learning again. Because our philosophy is that kids want to learn. They grow up wanting to learn. A toddler's favorite question is why. Why this, why that, why that. It's check in with any 3-year-old. They love to ask that question. And so it's the schooling system that kind of drums it out to them. And there's that moment, or, when I say moment, it might happen over weeks or months, but where they fall in love with learning again, and you notice it, there's just this passion that they have. Cool. I'll continue.
Brad, there is another question
Yep.
in the chat room from Magdalena, I think, which is, Brad, by nano-school you mean micro, small?
Yes, I think I did
That's right.
answer that.
Yeah.
I answered that earlier. Yeah. So
Okay.
nano-school 20
Thank
and
you.
less in our setting. Yeah. So we've actually, just from a regulatory perspective, we've had to register with a legal attorney to protect us, and they protect a whole bunch of homeschoolers in South Africa and kind of cottage schools and these types of things, because of the regulatory constraints, or at least the unwanted attention from the education department. So it's very much an ongoing battle for legitimacy in South Africa, but it's just growing, which makes it more difficult for the education department to fight. So, I just wanted to paint this picture as well. So I'm what they call a self-implementer in Sociocracy. So I take the learnings from the website and I apply it at Grace Cafe, and I go back to the website, I learn things, and we do the training together at Grace Cafe. So, sometimes at certain schools, you'd have like a consultant come in that, has a lot of knowledge in Sociocracy. With me, as I'm learning Sociocracy, and I'm still, I still consider myself very new to Sociocracy. As I'm learning it, I'm teaching it at the same time. So me, the students, the other team members, we're all learning together. And, it's a very important thing to point out, I think, because, in this wheel, I've just pointed out some of the things that I'm needing to look at, as we're developing this nano-school model. And we're really wanting it to a model that can be self-replicating, or at least easily replicated by other people. This is not a intellectual property that we're wanting to own. We want people to see what we're doing and copy it and apply it in their context, because every context, even in a South African context, is different. So I'm looking at mission, vision, values, purpose. Sociocracy, I think, would fall into a lot of the governance, admin, legal side of things. Then I'm also looking at the technology side of things. So technology, access to internet is a big challenge over here. And so we've really looked at very unique ways of addressing the technology perspective in the community itself. And thankfully, my engineering expertise can come into play over there. Fundraising, is a big part of it, crowdfunding, all of those types of things. We do engage with corporate organizations and other funders, but like I mentioned, we are very cautious because we don't want to be tied into agreements that result in a drift of our mission, which often happens. Strategy and people. So, HR is a big focus for me, motivating the team, motivating the students, creating helpful cultural practices in the space. Learning content. So we're doing the GED at the moment. If something better comes along, we'll use that. At the moment, GED is the best quality, the best quality at the cost that's really cheap as well. And then partnerships. So managing partnerships is very important. Getting people to volunteer at the space. All of those things requires engagement. And then I've put again for a second time fundraising. It's just such a big deal. And finance management. So this year, one of the things we plan to do is participatory budgeting. So having the students have a real tangible say in how we spend the money. So we've had transparent budgeting and transparent finance, so the students know how the money is spent and where it's spent, like electricity charges, internet charges, whatever it might be. But now we want them to have a say in those spending rhythms as well in terms of budgeting. I mean, the other thing we're planning to apply a lot more is nonviolent communication, so NVC. I did a bit of I did training on it last year and the year before. So planning to implement it with the team as well for this year. So, you know, this is paints a picture as a nano-school model developer. So sociocracy is important, but it's not the only thing. There's many other factors that I'm looking at, and as a self-implementer, it can be quite challenging to keep the momentum going as challenges crop up in relation to sociocracy, you know, in terms of forming circles, in terms of managing conflict and objections. Objections are largely seen as a bad thing. And so trying to reframe it in many ways as a good thing, as a way to learn about each other is, you know, a big focus for us from a sociocratic perspective. And yeah, I think just a lot of the challenges is in the mindset of sociocracy for the most part is a very foreign concept in South Africa, you know, consent-based practices overall. Sorry, Erica, could you perhaps mute? We're just getting some feedback from your side. And so, yeah, just taking even, thanks, Erica. Just taking our partners and many other people on this journey of understanding sociocracy is a big focus area. And I've become quite a big advocate for sociocracy in Cape Town and in South Africa. So there's a self-directed education school in Cape Town that I've been journeying with one of the leaders on, just, you know, mainly just helping them join the community of practice, but then also just sending support material. I started up a permaculture group as well, so kind of looking at the food security issue that we're having in South Africa, and the group that we formed also used Sociocratic practices in terms of meeting, in terms of leadership, elections, all of those types of things. And every time I've started up a group using this method, you know, it's just been amazing. It's just been such a impactful experience. And I think the big thing is, you know, from a Sociocracy for All perspective, the accessibility to the training content, you know, just the model that they use is very inclusive, and it allows for bottom-up practitioners to access, which is a big, you know, kind of going operation for us. Most of our things are bottom-up. And our hope is that in the future, as we continue to demonstrate the impact of doing this model, that the education department and other more formalized school settings will recognize us, and we'll be able to, you know, engage at a partnership level. So 2022 and beyond. So, you know, a big focus for us is a lot of school settings in South Africa, I would say, is from the get-go, you know, they're trying to quote unquote scale, you know, they're trying to just address the massive issue in South Africa. So it comes from good intentions of wanting to scale early. I think the challenge of that is that, you know, they basically operating in being a mile wide and an inch deep in terms of the impact. And our approach using the nano-school and the community engagement perspective is rather being an inch wide and a mile deep, and really just valuing that participatory intentionality. So I think, you know, that inch wide and mile deep intentionality really guides us in how we do things, and it's been able to give us the opportunity to really live out sociocracy at a deeper level than if we were to scale early. And scaling for us at the moment is that we're launching our second nano-school this year, which is like a 2-minute walk away from our first one. And the plan is to launch a community group around that nano-school as well. So, for me, another hypothesis is looking at the transformation in the community that's going to happen in terms of social cohesiveness as we continue to connect with the community and in particular the kids in this way. I'm just going to play a short video. I just remembered I shared without sound. I'll just stop sharing and share with sound. So this is just a quick video that Hope asked me to make, just showing the students doing a meeting around an issue that they had. I was not involved in the meeting at all. And we kind of recreated it in many ways, but this was kind of how the conversation happened. And it was also a great opportunity for them to live out, telling a story by video production. So I think they enjoyed the process as well. Let me know if you can't hear the sound.
How was your weekend?
It was lekker, thanks, Neil.
Liam, I like the shoes.
Thank you.
Might be a bit soft.
Okay, guys, let's start the meeting with how you all checking into the meeting. Let's start with me and go this way. I am checking in grateful, nervous, and excited.
I am checking in nervous and excited.
I'm checking in, ready for the day, grateful and excited.
I pause.
I'm checking in annoyed, and I really want to speak about my issue today.
Thanks for checking in, everyone. It's really helpful that you all checked in because now we can get the sense of how the meeting's going to be and how everyone's feeling. This is our weekly learning group meeting. A reminder that the aim of this meeting is to create a conducive space for learning and fun. Let's do a round of any issues or proposals that anyone has, and we're going to start with Casey and go this way.
Nothing on my side.
I have an issue and proposal regarding the use of the pool table. I feel when people are using the pool table, it's just really distracting while I'm learning, and I would like pool to be disallowed until lunchtime.
Thanks, Neil. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, and I also want pool to be disallowed until 3:30 after lunchtime.
Okay, let's do a reaction round. Let's start with Casey and go that way.
I agree that it can be distracting, especially the conversations that people have when they play pool. And it's really close to where we are studying.
Pool really helps me relax. I didn't know it was disturbing to others. I'm really sorry. But I also object to what Neil said. I don't think that pool should be disallowed except for lunch and after 3:30.
Nothing from my side.
Thanks for raising the issue you're having, Neil. Thank you, Liam, for your objection. Is there any proposals as to how we can resolve the issue and the objection?
Pause.
Pause.
Maybe when someone wants to play pool, they can move it away from the study area and into the coffee shop area. That way, it's away from the study area and we can still have some fun and play pool.
That's a great proposal, Courtney. Let's do a reaction round on that proposal. That is to quietly move the pool table over to the coffee shop area and still have fun and play pool.
I think we can give it a go. Maybe we could try it out for 2 weeks, meet again, and see how it's going.
Yeah, I think that will help a lot.
Agreed. The pool table has wheels, so it would be easy enough and quiet enough to move.
All good on my side.
Great. Let's do a voting for moving the pool table to the coffee shop area when playing pool. We'll meet in 2 weeks' time to see how's it going. Casey?
Consent.
Consent.
No objections.
No objections from me.
I consent to. Casey, please note the decision to update our policies. Thanks everyone. Let's now do a meeting evaluation.
Okay. And that's it.